also think that I read in many of the comments that there needs to be more transparency. And because this is such a big decision, I think we need to give the public and the community time to read this carefully and comment. So it would be helpful for them to have a chance over the next few weeks to comment or come to the next board meeting.
You know, as a participant in the core team and the intensive 2-day process, I'd just like to point out a couple of things. First of all, the process was robust, thoughtful, and broadly inclusive. 6,500 people answered surveys that we went through. We looked at data from public forums, from small group interviews, and of course we brought our own personal experiences in the district to inform the discussion. The community has been involved. What we did was, first of all, we decided that we wanted our goals to be bold and high level. The devil will be in the details. But the goals, we wanted them to challenge the district to move forward in a positive direction and not be specific about certain things. That will come from the action plans. And we talked about that. And so that's why, you know, maybe these goals sound a little lofty. We did that on purpose. The 28-member team determined that that was the focus we wanted to have. And what we did is, when reviewing all the data that came from multiple places, we looked for the overarching themes that we kept on seeing and hearing over and over again from students, from parents, from teachers, from administrators, from every stakeholder that offered their voice. And the goals that we set address the repetitive, recurrent themes that we read through the document. I strongly believe that this process was really well done. I appreciate the hard work of the other people on the committee, and I really don't see a reason to delay the vote. I think we should roll up our sleeves and start the action plans and move this district forward after we vote tonight.
Wesley? Yeah, as I mentioned, I do honor the process, and I think because this is a strategic decision which will impact 5-10 years down the road, I would love to see a move in unison, unanimous vote from the board, if possible. Because otherwise, I think it may cause some potential negative impact on the road. So for that reason, even though that's why I was saying, coming to the meeting, I was holding the opinion if the community have a positive response, and all my peers are all giving a positive response, and I'm definitely going to vote move forward. And I think, as I said, as part of the strategic core team member, I do see the work being done to be good. I mean, I don't want to give a number or something, but at this point in time, if I have 2 members feeling strongly about it, and also 1 member missing the meeting, Louisa O. So personally, I would like to give ourselves a little bit more time.
Okay, well, let me add that. Do we have?
Yeah.
Okay, I have a question. We have 28 members in the committee. Can I ask how is 28 people that selected?
Let me. Okay, we'll ask, in a minute I'll ask Dr. Wilson to come back and speak, but part of what we're doing here is the selection is to adopt these goals, these 3. There is nothing stopping Board of Education if we want to elaborate future. We set district goals every year. There's nothing stopping us at a future meeting from establishing additional goals, whether you want to, we get into a semantics of whether they're strategic goals or not, but we do set, every year we meet and set our own goals for the following year. We can't do it for future years because they're all boys. But the question right now is, do we value these goals? And it's sort of a yes or no on these three. It doesn't mean we can't supplement them with future ones. We are still a board and we can do as, what the 9 of us agreed to. So,
If I can comment on that, I think from a procedural issue, it's a bit strange to adopt strategic goals only to revise them a few weeks later, so I would rather...
not to revise, to supplement.
Or to supplement, or to revise, or to add on. I feel like that's the sign of, us not really having agreed on what the strategic goals should be.
Okay, I want to take a little step backwards here. So last week when I attended the community forum, I participated in the survey, and last week when we got to see which was actually sent to the community as well, the goals and the mission statement, I first looked at it and said, oh, the word empowers in here too many times, and it could be written, I would write it like this, or I would do, and then I stepped back and said, wait a minute, that isn't really what my role is. My role is to think about this in a broad, overarching sense. So then I went back and thought about what is the mission, and to what Tony had said earlier, what is the mission of a school district? We're very much, it's not like the strategic plans that I've worked on when I worked for a university and I worked for, a large company, where we could say, we're going to focus, we really want to go into this area, we want to develop in this area, or we want to focus, divest of this particular area. It doesn't really work like that in a public school because the only thing that we're doing here is educating students. That's the primary goal, and we're very much controlled by laws, regulations, policies, etc. And I think that some of the things, I'm still not clear on a couple of things that you said, Isaac, in terms of specifics that you want to see when you talk about an overall, the three most important things that we want to focus on are really going to be focused on who are, what we're doing here, just educating students. And some of these things like facilities is not, while it's something we need to have, it's not the business we're in. But the quote business we're in is educating students. So I felt that the three goals, while they could have perhaps been, I would have maybe written them differently, but maybe not if I'd been on the committee, because I know how it is when you work with many people and lots of different voices. I still think that that's what we're talking about, like differentiated instruction, personalized education, talking about building global citizens and learners, and we're talking about social and emotional well-being as a component of the education of every child. So those are the three things that I think are really important to this district and what makes us unique, because all districts in New Jersey all public school districts are doing the same thing, educating students. But those three things make us unique. Well, maybe I would have written them differently. It's still something that I think is what the team came up with, which I respect the process. But I also think that those are the things that have resonated with me. So.
I would just like to add one quick thing. That day was the first time that I ever tried to participate in the writing of a document with 27 other people. And there was a lot of conversation about every single word. And frankly, I participated in that. I added to that conversation and actually probably would still like to do so. But the word choice aside, I think that what matters most in our mission and our goals is whether or not they accurately reflect the consensus views of the data that we saw and the consensus views of the people in the room. And given the process, I can honestly say that the answer to that question is yes.
Yeah, there's such a big debate on this item. I'd like to get this postponed.
You asked a question about the process.
Yeah, how this
Yes,
committee-
okay. I'm going to ask Dr. Wilson to speak to that.
A couple of very clear statements. First, yes, any strategic plan in any organization lives or dies on the execution. And we do use that phrase in education. Mr. Chairman, we say a binder on a shelf, right? That is not, it is the lifeblood of an organization when the action plans are followed, enacted, and regularly reviewed. A Board of Education will look at these every 6 to 12 months, and this plan will not be a 10-year plan. It's designed as a 3 to 5 year plan. Our world and our needs are changing far too quickly to even consider 10 years. So 3 to 5 years with semi-annual reviews and, when necessary, revisions. And that is the process that follows after the action plans are adopted. The agenda actually says adopt a strategic plan. What you're being asked to do is adopt the 3 goals, the 3 buckets of work, so that that plan can be written and presented to you in full, in its entirety. And lastly, I want to stress that this is about focus. This is about many things that were eliminated and did not rise to the top of the priority list for West Windsor-Plainsboro. These are the 3 that rose to the top with enthusiasm, with a clear vision, and with lots of energy. They weren't easily debated, and they didn't just happen to be the 3 that were presented this evening.
Okay. So,
Oh, how were the people selected? I'm sorry, was I supposed
Yes.
to answer that? I'm sorry. I asked for a range of, no more than 32 people, because at some point it gets very, very unwieldy and impossible for people to adhere to a process and have a good result and yield a product. And I asked for that inclusivity, that there be representation from students, from support staff. So all of the areas that we've already gone through, many parents, community members, faculty, administration, and Board of Ed. And so that's how we landed on the number and the representation. And it was the inclusivity and the voice. And we tried to balance. And as I mentioned earlier, it was not about people who thought the same way. It was about people who cared as much as the next for the future of our children in West Windsor-Plainsboro, but it was seeking also diversity of thought.
Okay, thanks.
Rachel?
I actually do have a question. At least what I heard is a request to delay to the next meeting. And what I would like to know is if that, the next meeting is less than a month away. And so is about a month
The
away.
21st, yes.
So I guess what are you envisioning would occur between now and then? Is it that the 28-member team would reconvene again for another 2 days? I guess here's what I am concerned about, is that while I understand what you said, I don't want any rewriting of this to be less than what, we have a process and got 28 people to sit in a room for 2 days and work together. What I would not want to see is if it's rewritten by 1 or 2 people now, because of what's been said here. And so I do want to understand what would occur, and are we still getting the same input by the time the revised, if they are revised, the revised goals come back to us? Who has now drafted that? So what would happen if this is delayed? I'd like to understand that.
I don't know. What the people that are looking to delay it, what are they envisioning?
I am envisioning for a committee where the people involved in the committee to go back to some of these statements and make a couple of changes. I mean, we don't want, once again, it's not the role of the board to wordsmith. I don't want to go in with a red pen and write over it, but I think there are a couple of guidelines that we can send the document back with and take a look at the next draft.
So can you elaborate on what the guidelines would be?
Sure.
Because,
So, I guess what do I think we and first of all, I don't think that the strategic plan needs, I'm not saying that the strategic plan needs to have a goal on curriculum, a goal on communication, and so on and so forth. But what I do think that they need is to essentially create the focus of where our organization is, where our organization and the function of the organization is going in the future. So first and foremost, I think each of the strategic plans needs to better link with the mission statement. So I know, Judy, I asked you this question, and there's a couple of words that link, but it's not a clear direct link between all of our strategic goals and how they contribute to the mission statement. Second, I do think that there needs to be a little bit more clarity. These are pretty weighty sentences, and there's a lot of ideas here, and I think it could do us some good if we let some of these ideas here breathe. For example, a more peaceful, just, inclusive, and secure world. That's a really heavy topic. That's a very heavy idea here. What exactly do we mean by that? I think this is going to go a long way when a future board picks this up to understand what exactly we're trying to communicate with our goals here. And then finally, I think that we need to really think about if we are, I think just in general we need to have some time to think about the values and the priorities that we are essentially codifying into our strategic goals here. On Thursday, I haven't really had much time to fully digest what the goal means.
Well, are we disagreeing with any of the goals?
No. Fundamentally, no. Fundamentally, no.
Okay, well, that's basically what our vote would be now. If we want, like, we have these action plans coming that will get into details and can focus on, on these items. We have a Board of Education that the next few years, will be establishing goals as we go along too. These are supposed to be the core concepts of how we're operating. Not into, we want to have good facilities or we want to be fiscally responsible. That's our board member roles anyway. If we are okay with these goals, if we're okay with these goals, I think we should adopt them. If we have an issue with them, there's something about it that we don't like.
Excuse me.
This is important.
Excuse me. Please. Public had the opportunity. Board is deliberating.
I would like to say that I don't think I have a problem with any of the ideas in the goals. I do have a problem with the way they were written. I think it needs to be edited. It would be nice if some English teachers looked at it. It's not something that should be put in front of the public as representing our district the way it's currently written. I also believe the board has to be more professional and transparent, and that the large community of both towns really look at this and study it and think about it and comment on it before we take a vote.
Before I do, John, I see you. Did you want to say something?
Yeah. I know it's not normally my role, but I was part of the core team, and I've been in the district now going on 7 years. I'm hearing disagreement, not so much with the goals, but with the process, because of the feedback I'm hearing. I don't know what the task would be as a member of the team that I'm charged with, no matter how many times it has been explained. I'm hearing we agree with the overall concept, but I'm not hearing what I would be as a member in that room going back and redoing at this point. And so I'm a little concerned about getting back in that room with 28 people, still unclear as to what needs to change. And I know in the room with 28 people, the link of the goals to the mission statement was abundantly clear, and as every goal was reviewed, we reviewed the mission statement again and said, does this pass this test? And everyone in that room, from student to senior staff members to parents, came to agreement on that. So if we are going back to something like that, and I don't know where we'll land, I I feel we need more specificity based on this feedback as to what's expected without also negating the work of those 28 people in that room and removing the work that they've done unless it's really specific as what it is we need, what the task is. I'm still unclear. I'm listening, but I'm still unclear.
To echo Gerard, what is in front of you this evening is what this committee was charged with through the process that was set up, established, reviewed, and approved by the Board of Education. So what's in front of you is a step one document that they were asked to consider. They were not asked to list the items at this point. Well, we're asked to create focus that looks at our values and our aspirations and create high-level strategic buckets, concepts, goals that we are to focus on to charge our next work. So if the board chooses not to move forward this evening, and that's your right as the Board of Education, excuse me, the next step would be to reconvene the core team. That was the process that was established and approved on by the Board of Ed. Short of that, we throw the whole process out, we start over, we go out to a new RFP, we bring in a new strategic plan, or Judy wins the RFP, and she's done the work she was charged to do. The next step, ultimately, would be to do exactly what you're asking for, except with the idea that you're blessing the concept of these three ideas. And that's all you're doing today, is saying that these three ideas hold value and merit for this community, the board recognizes, appreciates, and accepts those, and then the heavy work begins. And that work would then come with 8 to 12 member committees being created, with 2 co-chairs, as Judy talked about, so the total committee would be 8 to 12. They would create action plans that meet out and talk to some of the very aspects that you're asking for. Timelines, budget, potential facility conversation, communication plans. Communication was clearly heard. We heard the message clearly that communication plans, except when you're talking about what do you value and what do you want for students, we don't want students to hear that the district communicates better. That was not a goal of aspiration for the kids, for the students in our district. But it was absolutely thought about, considered, recognized, value, and that's why we made sure that in the conversation with Judy that had to be driven home in her presentation, that we made sure that there would be a layer of communication strategy embedded within every action plan. If we were to go back right now, I did not sit in day one, purposefully. As a superintendent, I could raise an eyebrow and people think that's what I want. So I purposely stayed out of the data review and let the committee do their work. I had the pleasure to step in and sort of get caught up to speed and watch the process in day 2. And ultimately, it didn't matter if I was in the room, because those goals would have been those goals. And I trusted the process, and this is how the process meted out. If we were to go back into the room with the very boards and the very walls and the very data that we had, these 3 areas would have surfaced. I was shocked, actually, that these were the 3 areas that surfaced. But I had to trust the process. And just as you might be feeling like these were handed to me, same with me. Right? I was in the room, but my voice could have been absent of that process, and these 3 areas would have been focused upon. But now it's about trusting the process again, and it's about asking teams of folks to come together to create an action plan. So what you're going to ultimately approve in the future is a strategic plan, a comprehensive strategic plan with the aspects you want to lay out. I don't envision that process being like tonight. There would be presentation, opportunity for feedback, work with the committees, but we can't do any of that work. Nothing moves, nothing changes unless we can get the next part going. So what would happen if we postponed that? And there's the direction is to come back with some different wording. We'd reconvene the committee and we'd stare in a room for a while at each other, probably play this clip, and we'd say, does anyone understand what they actually want? Because we still have to come back with 3 goals. Because we weren't asked to create action plans for tonight. That's not what this interim step was. It was always known that this interim step was about making sure the board was okay with the direction of the goals. Now, I hear some folks saying they don't want to wordsmith. I hear others that say they'd like different word choices. That's ultimately the board's decision whether you want to send it back. And again, that's your right. So I think that's what's ultimately in front of you tonight. send it back to the committee for work on the goals themselves, or end the process tonight, start completely over with a different process. Or approve them tonight and trust the process and allow the process to play itself out. You'll have opportunity to say, review in that process.
Make a comment? I don't have a problem with the process. I think the process is excellent, and I think the board needs to also have an excellent process. I have a question of the preamble. I don't know what that means or why it's there. Shouldn't it be part of either the mission statement or the goals? When people are looking at this, they'll look at the goals. I don't know if they'll even read the preamble. And if there are important things in the preamble, I think they should be either in the goals or in the mission statement. So I think that the board needs to have a process of giving feedback to the team, and then the team should do their work and respond to it. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, and I think it's very important that the community have a chance to comment on this.
Just, Mr. Flores, just for a point of clarification, the motion that is on the floor is to postpone the vote. So just from a procedural standpoint. Correct, yes. Correct, to the next board meeting. So that motion has been brought, it has been seconded. Once the board's discussion on that motion concludes, there would have to be a roll call vote in order for that motion to pass. It would have to be adopted by a majority of the members here tonight. So present voting, 8, so it would have to be 5 affirmatives. Just from a process standpoint, if that motion does fail, the board then would revert back to the original motion, which was on the table before, which was brought by Michelle and YZ to adopt number 6. So just from a process standpoint, so nobody is confused that once the deliberation is concluded, the first vote that would be called by Mr. Shanek will be on the vote to postpone until the February board meeting. So just so that everybody is clear kind of how that would play out.
Okay.
And the votes that would be required for passage. So it would require 5 votes to postpone. It will require 5 votes to adopt.
Okay.
Let me make a comment here. So it sounds like where we differ, and this is quickly devolving into a semantic difference in terms of what we believe is in a strategic goal. My position here is that I believe that strategic goals should be more closely tied with the functions of an organization in order for it to be actionable in the future, and in order for it to be actionable in the future, in order for future boards to be able to understand what's going on. Now, it sounds like from a content and a procedural perspective, we'll be covering this in the action plan. This is what I mean when I don't want to get too caught up in a semantic argument. But what I want to think about is that after just listening to this discussion, it sounds like we as a board also just need some time to digest. So from a procedural perspective, I'm okay with letting the process go on, and if we and it sounds like this is the case, there is always an opportunity to come back to this as the process goes on to really flesh out what we mean by some of these goals and to potentially even add on to our goals here. Once again, I don't have any issues with the ideas here, and I think that, as I've been saying all along, I think some of the ideas in our strategic goals are fantastic. I really like them. I just want to make sure that at the end of this process, when we pull everything together, what we are left with is something that is not concrete and directive and focused enough for us to actually do something with it. That's my number one concern here, and it's a pitfall that I've seen in many different cases.
Well, okay.
That is guaranteed, Mr. Chairman, because the action plans are to instruct and inform with great specificity what will happen and roll out to address these goals.
And in reality, the action plan, the plans would need the work of more than just 28 people, over the span of a month. Even if we gave them, even if they had all the days. I mean, there was a lot of work done, as Dr. Wilson said at the beginning. We started a process. Sometimes we have to trust the process. These are, at a very high level, what we're trying to achieve. And it will get filtered down and defined as we go forward. And the board and the community and the public will have ample opportunity. There'll be presentations, discussions at meetings, follow-up presentations, nothing, future votes. And after adequate time to digest things as they go on. We'll have committee meetings, and again, we'll have our own committee and board meetings to work this out. So I can assure you that this isn't going to be a one-time thing, and we're locked into anything we do today, other than just to acknowledge that these are important items that the community members have developed, and we're just going to affirm that this is what the sense of the board and the people of Plainsboro and West Windsor.
Tony, are you saying that if we vote to accept these as is tonight, that there can be changes in the future on them?
Not changes to the goal itself, but the actions that come out of it. That would be, I guess a board can vote however they want at a future meeting, but the intention is that these are the aspirations of the school district, of the community that put it together, the community we serve. So the details that come out later will be developed by the board, and then we'll all be getting votes on it. Nothing concrete other than today acknowledging that these are our three goals. There's no other action, nothing's locked into the board.
Just to add on that, I think, so, I agree, if we were to call together the 28 people, I can see how that would be a very frustrating experience for everybody involved. What I want to make sure is that as we go through the action planning process, that if clarifications to wording, clarifications to intent emerge as a result of that process, that we have the ability to come back and make revisions.
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay.
I don't feel comfortable having, as it's currently worded, the mission statement or the goals associated with this district or this Board of Ed or our students or anything else. It's not well written.
Okay. Was it?
Just a thought, open thought, not necessarily a suggestion. What if we take into some of the input from the community and some of the board members and give a clear instruction back to Gerard's point? Like, for example, should we or should we not include the word build upon our tradition of excellence into the mission statement as one topic the 28 people can vote on and then decide on that point? And then should we wordsmith some of the statements, taking into consideration, not necessarily having all 20 people meeting in the same room, but going through some discussion.
I think,
I'm just, again, just open thought.
yeah, I think we shouldn't, as a board now or as a community, get really too hung up on the words themselves. There's the concepts behind them. It's, as I understood, and I've been involved, certainly not with this process, but I've been involved with organizations as we try and write something, and you start arguing about every comma and every semicolon in the statement. If we are comfortable with the three concepts that these goals embrace, the fact that, I don't know, we say excellence in the preamble, but not in goal 2, or as what I was told, the word adjust is in there or not, that's not going to change anything. These goals are really to show the sense of the community and what we want for our children, and we should go forward on that. I wouldn't delay anything. I wouldn't certainly delay the process another month just because, you know, we want to change, you know, I don't know if it's one word to another or add a comma or anything like that. Again, I think the question before the board is, are we comfortable establishing these concepts as what's going to drive the district, and then go forward and start working out the details?
Tom?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question.
So,
Yeah, several people mentioned the tradition of excellence. In our old current statement commission, we have this wording, and now we don't have that. People might assume we are not focusing on the tradition of excellence anymore. And also, you were saying we can amend the current missional statement. How often are we going to do that? Even Constitution can be amended several times. So my question is, how often can we add that? And if we do have to amend that, are we going to get the same 27 or 28 people?
no. First of all, I'll tell you as a fact that we can't, next January, there could be 3 or 4 different members sitting on the board. I mean, there was one year where the boards change. Whatever we decide now, we can't make the next board agree to. I mean, a Board of Education, it's not like the Constitution. The mission statement is a statement that a future board can change if they like. So that's, it's a state, this is meant to be a statement that came from the members of the community, a cross-section of teachers, parents, who read the survey, read the 6,500 survey responses, came up with a sense of what the community is looking for and what the community wants, and translated all those responses, and I imagine their own experiences, into the mission statement and the goals. To argue over having the word tradition of excellence, it's nice. I've been on the board for 10 years. I don't remember anybody saying, well, we have to do this because we have a tradition of excellence. That's, the community elects us based on our own values. Hopefully we're going to respond to what the community wants. If not, there's an election a year later and they can change that. But I don't see how just saying tradition of excellence, we seem to be focusing on that thing almost to the point where we want to have something to complain about, so we're just going to bring that up. But tradition, somehow you do something and then that burns the tradition. You don't say, I want to have a tradition. You know, if a restaurant is known for its quality, they provide quality food and then they get a reputation. So the tradition is something that is a result of what we do. Not, you know, we do these things because they're the right thing. Not that someday someone will just say we're excellent. We do it for the right reasons. And I'll just point out that our logo does say excellence in education. We're not changing that. All right.
Yes, I know that the mission statement is usually on the front page of the district website. It's also on a lot of documents, and I read it every time I look at the website. I read about half of the survey responses so far, because there are so many of them, but many of them talk about they want students to be challenged and they want excellence. And it is my belief that our community, every single person here moved here because of excellent schools. And that is incredibly important. it's not just something to complain about, but it really means something important to everyone who bought a house in these towns.
So do you think that if the mission statement doesn't say tradition of excellence, you as a board member would be voting differently on stuff?
I think that's very important to be in the mission statement, and as I've already mentioned, I also think this needs editing as someone who's a good writer. I also think the community needs time to absorb this and comment on it and give feedback. Filling out a survey and then is not the same thing as seeing what the goals and mission statement of the district are going to be for the next 3 to 5 years. This is something totally different. So now we need the public to have a chance to look at it and comment.
Okay, any other statements?
Just the point about excellence. How do you get to excellence? I think the 3 goals address that in the sense that we get to excellence by having personalized instruction, teaching children, and also making our staff aware of being global citizens and learners, and making sure that social and emotional well-being is taken care of as a component of the education. And that's how you get to excellence. So I think we're mincing words, and I think that the action plans will be very, very specific as to how the district will achieve these, or attempt to achieve these 3 goals, and there will be measures that we will have to go back and look at. Maybe some action plans won't happen, because we can't do them for some reason, and we'll go back or things change. I just think that the concepts, whether they're written the way I personally would have written them or someone else would have written them, the concepts are valid and unique to our school district, and that's what I think makes us an excellent school district. So that's my.
I'd just like to clarify just one other thing as well. First of all, these 3 goals represent the majority opinion of the data that we looked at. And the other thing is when we were talking about the mission statement, we recognized the importance of that phrase about excellence, and talked about how we wanted to use that and put it in the prefatory statement of the goals, that the prefatory statement applies to all 3 goals, and it gives context to what we want to do. But just to reiterate what some of my colleagues have said, the core team was charged with determining the 3 goals that will move this district positively forward in the next 3 to 5 years. We were not charged with figuring out how to do that. That will happen once we set the direction for the planning teams. And so I also, to piggyback on what Gerard said, we all worked diligently. We took our jobs seriously. We came to the table discussing, pushing back, debating, and these 3 goals rose to the top. And I guess to me, the sign of a good school district and a strong and an excellent school district would be to serve our students the way these 3 goals are delineated. So I guess I don't understand what delaying the vote would do, and I just want to reiterate that the core team followed the process that we were given, and it's time when we move forward to get the specific actions on how we will achieve these goals.
Okay.
Yep, so when it comes to these goals, once again, I don't want to get into an exercise in wordsmithing here, but I do think that there are a lot of terms that could be cleaned up, language that could be further defined, and it sounds like we'll have a chance to do that in the action plan phase. It also sounds like if we were to delay the vote today, from a practical matter, it's not going to be productive. We're never going to get to that discussion anyway.
Yeah.
So, with that view in mind, let's keep working on this, because I don't want to lose a month. That's not my goal here, but I do want to, in essence, move this forward from a procedural perspective, so that we can continue to have discussion on this.
Okay.
Not the core ideas themselves, but how to present them and how to define certain ideas, how to clarify what we need, and potentially to add on anything that we think is in the process missing.
I appreciate that. Okay, I think we've talked this out now. What's on the table right now is the motion to postpone the vote. Just before I ask Larry to call it, I want to be sure that we get our yeses and nos correctly. So if you want to push off the vote until the next meeting, you're going to be voting yes. If you want to vote on it later this meeting, you're going to be voting no.
Can I withdraw my second?
The second motion just means that you want to have discussion. It doesn't necessarily mean you're supporting. The person who makes the motion is someone, it should be in favor of and voting yes. Well, I guess in theory, discussion can change someone's mind.
Just for
I'm in
report.
favor of the motion.
No, we're not calling the vote yet. Yeah.
So, just
Yes.
for point of clarification, the way the motion could come off the floor, if you will, the motion to table that's currently in front, it would require the consent of Ms. Hertz, who made the motion, as well as Mr. Chang, who then seconded that motion. You couldn't just rescind the second. We're kind of down that path. Anybody, regardless of what Mr. Clark saying, regardless of how whether you make the motion or you second the motion, that does not lock in a vote ever. Board members are always free to vote however they wish, whether they make the motion, they second the motion, whatever you like, whatever you choose.
Okay, so the motion on the table is to delay the vote on the strategic plan until the February 21st meeting.
Mr. Chang?
Yes, no to delay.
Ms. Hertz?
Yes?
Ms. Juliana? Ms. Crook?
No.
Mr. Wazir Jean?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor Jean? Yes. Ms. Cage?
Yeah, actually, excuse me, can I add one more thing? If we add the,
That was a yes, sir?
Mr. Chung, that yes vote?
yes,
Okay.
Ms. Cage?
No.
Mr. Flores?
No.
3 yeses, 5 noes.
Okay, so-
Motion fails, Mr.
Right.
Okay, I would like
So-
to make another motion. I would like to make a motion to renew our current mission statement and not change it. The current one that was in place for the last few years and not make a change to it, which does include our tradition of excellence.
I would only add, Ms. Hertz, just that the failure of the motion to postpone brings the original motion back on the table, which was to approve the strategic plan, which was number 6, that was brought by Ms. Cage and, excuse me, Mr. YZ Zhang. So at this point, unless Ms. Cage and YZ are willing to rescind their motions, that is the motion that is presently on the floor, and if after that motion, if you wish to bring your motion, that would be the appropriate time.
Okay, so,
Can I make a statement before the vote?
sure.
So, while I agree with all of the ideas and the work, and appreciate all the work that went behind these goals, I'm still going to have to vote no on the goals because, as I mentioned, there are a lot of issues that I do find with how the document currently stands, which, if we're looking specifically at what we're voting on, I think that there could be an improvement. However, if these strategic goals pass, I look forward to working with the action plan committees to improve what we have here.
So-
Wait, I have a question. So what is, can you tell us what happens if this
This vote.
motion, what happens
A
with
yes
a yes or
accepts
no?
the goals, a no rejects the goals.
And then what do we do as a,
That's the vote is,
so then we would start the process over again, or whatever we,
We have to discuss that.
yeah.
Yeah, can I add something? Okay, if we just add these 5 words to the mission statement, valuing our tradition of excellence, I will accept everything else.
That would be requesting an amendment to the motion that would require the consent of the original individuals who made the motion, which is again is Ms. Case and Mr. Wyzee.
So, what is the, I want to understand what you're asking.
You made a motion to adopt the, yeah, I'm trying to figure out what he's, I think it's the similar, I'm trying to figure, yeah.
not the old one.
Yeah.
Just the new one with 5 words.
No, I don't want to be old one. I want to add these 5 words.
That's a different that's a different motion. So at this point, my recommendation would be to vote on the motion that's currently on the floor. And then if there's further discussion, if there's revision, if there's direction, then the board can give that at that time.
Why can't the discussion be to change something before we vote on it?
Then it would be to adopt it as amended, which would require, as I was saying, Ms. Case and Mr. Wyzee's consent. So the motion would be to adopt 6 as amended.
Okay.
You have to propose that before you move to vote.
All right. I want to understand what you're asking.
Yeah, because the reason why I'm asking.
No, what it is you're asking, not why.
Okay, I'm asking, so with the new mission statement, I want after school district, comma, valuing our tradition of excellence, comma, these 2, whatever is in the current statement, new statement. Just add these 6 words. Because this
Let me ask a procedural question. I think I really want to follow the procedure. The question is, at this point in time, does the board as a whole obviously has the power to alter the content of the mission statement and the goals at this moment in time? And I just don't know the answer. Procedural-wise, I don't know. Maybe is the motion can only yes or no, or can we also have the flexibility to adopt or adapt such a modification? Is my question.
And maybe, if I could just make a statement, just to clarify, because so much has been said so far tonight that actually I think goes against the process that the committee was charged with. Right? So what I've heard members say is basically that we can now approve the concept, but the wording of the goals can be changed later. And that's not what the 28 members signed up for. So I feel, in fairness to them, to raise that, because the 28 members' understanding of the work they were doing on behalf of the school community was to present goals that would be adopted for the 3 to 5 year implementation timeline. It wasn't that their work would then be changed after the fact. Now, I respect that the board has feedback and that the board might not like them as is, and your right as the board is to reject them. And quite frankly, if there's this much concern with them, I suggest you do that. And send it back to the 28 to do the work of clarifying the goals. But the charge that they had is to look at the mission statement and create 3 goals. And the work of the board is then to review those and make a determination that they reflect the values and they reflect the district. And it's not to add in language arts teachers so they can help the 28 of us write, or it's not to add more. That's the core team. So if there is dissatisfaction with the goals as is, vote them down. And we'll go next month. We'll hope to, in the middle of budget, attempt to bring 20 people together. That most likely won't happen by the 21st. I'll be very, very honest. So we'll probably show back up in March with 3 additional goals, new goals, looking at the exact data, so it's going to be just the committee wordsmithing, and looking at the mission, and coming back for a similar deliberation, unless you want to change the whole process, which again is the board's right, but then it would be stopping everything that we've done and starting over. Again, you're right, but I feel we've gone down a path that goes against the process we set out. And I think I owe it to those 28 members that put a lot of time in. I owe it to Judy to honor the process that we set out. So
I'm afraid I must interfere with the flow and ask for a motion to extend the meeting for an hour.
Okay, we can do that. That's not a roll call, right? That's not a roll call.
No.
But that's an all.
Those in favor of extending the meeting another hour?
We-
or-
we-
Wait,
Do
Mr.
we
Flores,
motion
we
and
actually need
second?
the motion and a second for that.
That's right. Yes. All right, could I have a motion to extend another hour? Wisely and Taylor. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. We, just so everybody knows, in our bylaws, at 10:30, we have to vote to extend the meeting. For an hour, we've never figured out what happens if we say no. I guess we just keep voting again until enough people say yes. But, okay. So getting back to this, I'm going to think towards the future. And in the future, I mean the next 2-3 months, if nothing else. Again, what do we expect to be different in February or in March? We were talking about where we want to see the district going, not in any detail, just at the conceptual level. If we disagree with these 3 items, then we should be voting no. If my sense is that if we want to play around with words, I don't see how that changes anything. We can argue words forever. We understand the concepts. When you talk about the mission statement, a mission statement can be amended any time too, but we have a bunch of people that put in a lot of work. We charge them with coming up with these goals with the mission statement that goes with it. I don't consider myself any smarter than any of them that would put my judgment ahead of theirs. I believe what they did, they represent the community just like we're supposed to represent the community. So voting, I want to accept the work they've done. A no vote now seems to be rejected, and I don't think it honors their work.
Procedural, I have a procedural question. If we were to not adopt the strategic goals today, could the ANF committee then call for a continuation of the work without having adopted these strategic goals, but with using this as a draft document and moving forward with the creation of action plans?
There's,
the blessing of the board, can you do it?
yes, there's nothing that, if we, for several years, I guess last time we did a strategic plan was 2003. If we don't do one, if we never did one, we would still be, we carried on without it. So, but this is a process, it's supposed to be a planning process, and we need something to go forward. Why would, the other way, what would the facilities, administration facilities do that they wouldn't do had we voted for these goals? Or what would we not do, what would change?
I'm thinking about
So-
this more as a contingency if it doesn't pass right now.
But the strategic plan is meant to be inclusive. I don't really see why we would discuss it in committee. The whole point was to have community involvement with every possible stakeholder. That's how the core team work, and that's how the action teams will work, and I don't really support us working on it in committee. It's not a board project.
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that I want to avoid a scenario where we drop the ball for a month. Basically, what I'm saying is that if this does not pass tonight, can we still convene the action plans to?
No, because in effect, I would say that it's almost like it's not going to pass, but we're going to make believe it did. That's not the way we should be operating. If it doesn't pass, then we should be rethinking what we're going to do rather than just, act like it passed. That's, it's non-transparent.
I do appreciate the desire to keep moving. But in theory, the action team would be working from the perspective of the board is not in control. And that's what their charge would be, to give the action plan template. The contingency, I'm not sure that ANF by itself could charge that committee to do that work if the full board has not approved the goals. So what I just said, we can do anything to support the board, it really doesn't require support the board. And look, if we need the time to process, we need time to process.
I have a question. For this strategic plan, was this voted among the 28 people? And what was the 28 to 0?
It was voted unanimously.
Okay, I think we may have talked this out now. So, if anybody has anything to say, anything else, I'll give it one last chance.
I guess we didn't talk it out. Yeah, just wrap it up on my point of view. As I said, as it is, I'm in support of the current statement. At the same time, I do want to see this move forward with more of a unanimous support from the board. And I mentioned Lisa's not here. I really want to hear from her if she's here, but because of now. So I guess I'm caught in the middle at this point in time.
So you'll have to vote your conscience.
Conscience or procedure. If I vote for no, it's because of the procedure, not necessarily because of the disagreement.
One more question. How hard is it to add just these 6 words and then get voted next time? Because I think this is where the debate is.
I felt that I had previously heard Ms. Case say she was not withdrawing for amendment of her motion, which I heard Mr. Castan said was a necessary condition for doing that right now. After the vote, and after the other motion that's in place, you could then...
Yeah, the only way to, if the motion fails tonight, the only way to bring back the motion as is presented would be a motion for reconsideration, which would have to be brought by a member that would have voted on the side that prevailed. So it would have to be brought by somebody that voted no. So really, in essence, if it's voted down as it currently appears, and the board would have to follow the process of going through revision.
His question was, I would be clear about the way we're doing this. So if I'm saying your question wrong, correct me. But I believe his question is, we would vote on the, on this as it stands, and the goals and the mission statement, and then he's going to make a motion afterwards to change the mission statement.
Yes, by adding these 6 words.
But they would be standalone votes.
to you guys.
Yeah.
Can we have can we call the goals and the mission statement separately?
That's a good idea.
We would have to rescind the motion currently on the floor, which is number 6. We would have to revise 6, basically almost make it 6A and 6B, or Mr. Shanaker?
Ms. Hertz, go first though, before.
Yeah, we would have to rescind.
First comes decision, but then would come Ms. Hertz's advantage.
Yes.
And action on it.
Yeah, because Ms. Hertz, well, if the motion comes off the floor, then the floor is open to any member.
And at this point, Ms. Hertz made a motion, but
Was not
I did
seconded.
not see a second yet. So that's a factor.
Yeah, I would say that once the motion comes off the floor, then the floor is open to any motion that may be brought,
There
including
was a
Ms.
motion
Hertz's
made, but
amendment.
not yet seconded.
I second Michelle. So vote the goals and statements separately.
I have not heard from
Okay.
Ms. Cage.
I'm going to rescind the vote, but I would like to just say, I'm going to rescind my motion. I feel very strongly about the work that we did on the core team. But I also feel very strongly that to delay this vote is not in the best interest of the district or of students. So, one of the things that I would like to suggest is, taking from what Taylor is saying, but not quite. He's saying that he would like to add in valuing our tradition of excellence. I would like to suggest that we amend the mission statement to not say it quite that way, but to say it the way the core team saw it, where it's building upon our tradition of excellence.
Okay, that would be fine with me.
So,
May I just to kind of clean this up a little bit, so we can move forward? Okay. Ms. Cage, I apologize. You are okay with rescinding the motion?
yes.
Mr. Wise, are you also okay with rescinding the motion because you had seconded?
Yes.
Okay. The motion is currently off the floor.
Now,
Now, Ms. Cage.
So,
Or member.
this is all wordsmithing, but we could say one of two things, but the mission statement
Could
could
we
read,
first, I think we have to first deal, is there a second or not for the motion that Ms. Hertz made?
My motion is to make a motion to renew our current mission statement as it has been for the last several years and not make a change to it.
okay.
Does anyone want to
That's a
second that
motion.
motion?
Is there a second? If not, we go on. And then Michelle, you can proceed.
so I will then make a motion.
There is no second.
No second.
To revise the mission statement that we will be voting on, to read, building upon our tradition of excellence, the mission of the West Windsor-Plainsboro Regional School District is to empower all learners to thoughtfully contribute to a diverse and changing world with confidence, strength of character, and love of learning.
So, Ms. Cage, just so everyone is clear, you are making a motion. Is this for the strategic goals and the mission statement together, or are you seeking, this is just the mission statement as amended? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Just for point of clarity.
Okay.
So is that, Ms. Cage?
I'm sorry.
Was your motion simply on the mission statement or the combination?
So we're going to be voting on both. The motion is to adopt this with the amendment.
Correct.
That,
I'm suggesting that we amend the mission statement and the motion to adopt the mission statement and the goals.
Okay, so the motion would be to adopt the mission statement and the goals as amended, as
okay.
Mission statement as amended, not the statement.
Point of clarification, we're not splitting mission statement with goals.
Right.
No, this is, the motion that is currently on the floor, but has not been seconded, would be to adopt the mission statement as amended and the goals as presented.
Okay, can I repeat what Michelle just made for the mission statement? So the mission of West Windsor-Plainsboro Regional School District of building upon at the very beginning.
The very first thing would be building
Upon our tradition of excellence.
building upon our tradition of excellence, the mission.
Okay, thanks.
So, Michelle, the question is what do we do about the building upon the second part?
We need a second
In
before
goal,
discussion.
to kind of- I mean, that's a technical thing, but.
You need a second before
We need a second
discussion.
on the
You
motion.
can't
Yes,
just
give
get
me a
a
second on the
discussion.
motion. Are you okay with that? So you'll second?
Okay.
I'm sorry, the questioning, Jim?
Taylor?
Can I ask now?
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea to make the amendment. I'm just saying, if we do that, then we have building upon our tradition of excellence again in the strategic goal.
Well-
But I think that's okay, but.
Just as to comment on that, the mission statement is what gets seen commonly. I mean, I don't even know if the last go-around had a preamble to the strategic goals, but to be honest, in the last 10 years, I haven't read them, so not to minimize it, I think that, the mission statement is the public thing. That's what Taylor's biggest concern was. Again, I don't want to get into start wordsmithing stuff. We'd be replacing our opinions with 28 other people, and I'm not really sure that, well, I know I'm not smarter than all 28 of them, so I'll defer their judgment too. But anyway, I don't see it as a problem having it both ways, having it in both locations. Is there any comment?
Yes, I want to
I
know.
have a question.
Yeah.
On goal number 1, is it correct to say, understanding that all students have diverse needs and backgrounds, isn't it more correct to say, understanding that WWP students have diverse needs and backgrounds, and we want to enable all students to realize their first potential? Because as it is now, you're implying that each student has diverse backgrounds, and each student has one background.
I think if you're talking about replacing all with WWP, I think we are talking about WWP students. I think that that's sort of implied
What I'm
that,
saying is that it doesn't make logical sense to say the word all there.
come on, again, I don't see it as a problem, and I don't think I think it makes sense the way it is. I've understood it that way. I think, most of the people in this room would understand it. I mean, all our students. Taylor, you want to say something, or?
Yes, based on what Michelle just said, I'm going to vote for this amendment. And for the strategic goals, 3 goals, I think that's the conclusion of all the 28 core members, and I respect their conclusion. And I do believe that I read all the 6,500 responses, so I plan to vote for the amendment.
Okay. Do we have any other comments?
It sounds like if we don't pass this today, we're going to get into the very pitfall that I was concerned about, and we're going to get into an action.
We're going to be doing this again next
We need
month.
to, we can't move forward without a strategic goal. As I said, I still have concerns with how it's written today, and I can't vote for it, but, we need to move ahead. And if we don't pass this today, it sounds like this is just we're going to go back to square one here.
There's an expression, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good.
I don't think there's anything wrong with allowing time for community comment and review and for some editing to be done.
Okay.
It sounds like we're going to have, there will be another opportunity once the specific action plans
All right, are we done? Larry?
Mr. Chang?
Abstain.
Ms. Hertz?
No.
Ms. Juliana?
Yes.
Ms. Krug?
Yes.
Mr. Wisely John?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Cage?
Yes.
Mr. Flores?
Yes.
6 yes, 1 no, and 1 abstention.
Okay. Believe it or not, there's still more of the board meeting.
With the amended-
As,
Yes.
yes.
And
Mr. President, we're on the B section.
what?
On the agenda, we're on the B section.
Yeah, I know, I just wanted to catch my breath.
That's okay.
See where we are. You know, Okay, we're up to curriculum. Can I have a motion on the curriculum items, let's see what they are now. 1, 2, 7, with 4 and 5 being the substitution on the yellow sheets. YZ and Dana, and we're missing a board member. No, he went to say goodbye. Okay. That's good. Okay, so we have a motion on, so Whiteley and Dana moved the curriculum items 1 to 7 plus 4, the substitutions of 4 and 5. Any discussions on the curriculum items? Larry?
Ms. Hertz?
Yes.
Ms. Juliana? Ms. Krug?
Yes.
Mr. Wisely John?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Chang?
Yes.
Ms. Cage?
Yes.
Mr. Flores?
Yes.
8-0.
Okay, finance items 1 to 14, I believe it is. Can I have a motion on that? Taylor and Rachel. Any questions on the finance items?
Ms. Juliana?
Yes.
Ms. Krug?
Yes.
Mr. Wisely John?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Chang?
Yes.
Ms. Hertz?
Yes.
Ms. Cage?
Yes.
Ms. Flores?
Yes.
8-0.
Okay, now there's an item for budget presentation. Considering the hour, do we want to do that or combine everything to the meeting on the 21st? Everybody are we up for the budget presentation?
No.
Yeah, we could do that. It's not, yeah. We don't have to vote to not do it. It's not a voting item.
There is no vote tonight on the budget.
Okay, so we'll skip that. Everybody come back on the 21st if you want to hear the budget thing. One of the things we gain by having these meetings videotaped is that we get to see Larry go through the budget for one last time. And it'll be recorded for the future so we can show you the successes. This is how it was done. But,
That's an effective argument for not doing it.
yes. Okay, personnel. Can I have a motion on the personnel agenda? And there's a white sheet addendum on that. All right, Rachel and Dana move. Any questions on the personnel items?
Ms. Krug?
Yes.
Mr. Wisely John?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Chang?
Yes.
Ms. Hertz?
Yes.
Ms. Cage?
Yes.
Mr. Flores?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I skipped this for Juliana. Sorry about that. Mr. Flores?
Yes.
8-0.
This is a point where I usually get to acknowledge the retirements and that we voted on this now, and I think it's been said enough about Mr. Shannon. The one good thing is that he's not actually leaving until the end of the school year, so we'll have him around for this budget. The approval of the minutes, I have a motion for that. YZ and Michelle. Those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any liaison reports? Any new business? Okay, a second opportunity for public comment. Please remember to give your name and address.
Joe Smith, New York City. No. My name is Scott Powell. I live on Cambridge Way in Windsor. First, I want to apologize for my outburst earlier. Second of all, I wanted to say I appreciate the debate that the board went through tonight with respect to the goals, but I am disappointed that it devolved into the debate that it devolved into tonight. Mr. Chang, if you were going to bring forward this motion to postpone the vote, I think some of the conversations should have been had before the board meeting so that it didn't turn into such a free-for-all about what we were going to do and how we were going to change the goals, because it kind of disrespected the process, and I think that's kind of what came out here, is that the board had set out a process to begin with, and now we got to the pivotal stage in the process, and we want to rewrite the process. And I think that was a mistake, and if that was really what the outcome that was desired was, it should have been discussed before the board meeting so that when it came time to actually have this discussion and this vote, that the board had a better idea of what was going to happen and how things were actually going to play out. Board meetings are theater, and it's put on so that people can see that the board has these discussions and ultimately comes to these decisions. But the theater should be orchestrated a little bit more. And so if you wanted to make that proposal to make changes, you should have been having conversations on the weekend with different board members about how you were going to get there. So that's my disappointment about this process.
All right, normally I make comments until the end, but, well, I'll respond to it later. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Bruce Hamistrelli. Good evening. My name is Bruce Hamistrelli. I'm the president of the Teachers Union. I just do want to take a moment and wish Larry all the best, but we'll see each other at a few more meetings. So I'll give you my standing ovation in June, okay, at your last board meeting. Secondly, I was a member of the 28 who worked on the committee, and I do want to thank the facilitator for the activity she ran us through. I would invite any member of the board to speak with me freely so that I could share some of my opinions of what went on. And I have to say, as a member of the committee, normally I'm very cheery, but I must say I'm a little disheartened tonight. So I'd be willing and happy to talk to any member of the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
My name is Jigang Zhang from West Windsor. First of all, I want to thank Larry and Alicia for your devotion to this school district. I wish you a happy retirement after this school year. I was also one of the 28 core team members for the strategic planning. Earlier, Mr. Taylor-John asked Dr. Wilson how those 28 members were chosen. I do not know how the other 27 members were chosen, but I'm willing to share with you publicly how I was chosen. Most of you in this room probably know me as I have been vocal in the last 15, 16 months in terms of school district matters, and we recently formed an education organization called WWP Education Support Association. I'm current president of this association. Ever since I heard about this strategic planning, I believe it was last year, somewhere in June or something, I saw this from the school district website. I immediately sent Dr. Adaholt an email. By the way, in the past 12, 15 years, I constantly send email to him discussing school district matters. Months. Did I say years? I should go to bed. I should go to bed now. It's too late. Okay, I'll finish soon. Anyway, and Dr. Adaholt said, thank you for contacting me. This is underway, ongoing project. Appreciate your volunteering. I will contact you in due course. And in early October, I received an email from Jerry Hunter, and inviting me to be part of this core team. And of course, I very gladly accepted this invitation. That's it. That's how I got involved. Cannot speak for the other 27, but that's my experience. Thank you. I hope that helps answer part of the question.
It's consistent with what Judy just said, inclusive.
Yes.
Thanks.
Jennifer Howard, 5 Keystone West Windsor. Peace. Happy New Year. Ms. Boyko just ran out, so I was going to wish her good luck in her retirement, but you can...
She left her coat, so...
I'll thank her later on. I actually was on the original strategic planning mission statement of this present mission statement. And all I can say is that it's difficult. I truly respect what the 28 people did. There is a lot of wordsmithing, believe it or not, when you're coming up with something. And words are put in purposely, words are not put in purposely. And as someone who takes a little bit of pride and ownership in the present mission statement and understanding that you're changing it, I understand. Because it's not 2003 anymore. It's 2017. We have to keep moving, we have to keep improving, we have to go with the times. So I don't take ownership in the old one, and I understand from the process from the last time, it's just very difficult. And so in the future, I would just encourage that if you're doing something like this, you really lay out what the process is, because as I saw tonight, changing the process, I mean, it's just changing the goalposts what the attempt was tonight. If you have a process and the board votes on the process, that's what you vote on. Thanks.
Thank you.
Principal Lee Court, Plainsboro. Ms. Sprout and Ken, you guys have been instrumental in the district. I want to congratulate you on your many, many, many years of service to the district. You will be missed, but I hope you won't be strangers. You will at least come and visit us, okay, in your retirement. Now, for the event, or the fiasco, if you would, that took place tonight. There were 28 members of the community that participated, and I think it was only fitting to give them the just respect that they were selected to perform. When we choose to dissect their words and add in ours for theirs, we are simply saying your time, your commitment, your dedication to the task that was given to you was not appreciated, and it was useless. It is unfair for us to change and put our own words. They give it, they list it. We can either vote for or vote down. That's the choice that is given to the board. Vote up or vote down. Either way, Happy New Year, everyone. We have a lot of work to do, 2017. Thank you.
Thank you.
Virginia Windsor, 20 Berkshire Drive. Not to beat a dead horse, but I just wanted to add a couple of additional comments about the bike tour on the Washington, D.C. trip for the German 8th graders, because there were several other German parents here, but they couldn't wait for public comment because it was an hour and 15 or 20 minutes into the meeting, so they had to leave. The problem with the current situation, which is a walking tour of the monuments in D.C., is that they did that last year, they walked, and they couldn't go to all of the monuments that they could normally have gone to on the bikes. because there wasn't time, because the walking was slower, and even more importantly, the kids were exhausted. So then the activities that they did after the walk, they couldn't fully enjoy because they were miserable, because they'd been walking instead of riding a bike, which is a lot easier physically on the kids. So the trip, this as proposed this year, as approved this year, with a walking tour of the mountains instead of a bike, is way worse than 2 years ago. And we know that because they did it last year, and if they had been put on the agenda, they would have come in here and the kids would have told you that themselves. Or some of the other parents would have said it if public comment had been earlier. So that is why we would like to have that bike tour reinstated. As for, and the other thing is, I understand that you approved the Costa Rica trip to Germany, trip to Austria. Those are all fabulous trips. I'm happy for those kids. I just don't know why you have to nickel and dime the kids in 8th grade German class going to Washington, D.C. every year this trip is picked on. It's not right. With regard to the mission statement and the strategic goals, I have professional experience. I've done business writing, taught business writing at a university, and I have to agree 100% with Isaac that mission statements and strategic goals are usually I've always seen them, not usually, but I've always seen them written in a much more straightforward fashion. And I respect the work that the 28 people did, and I'm not taken away from that, but I know from experience that when you have a group of people working on something and you're very close to it and you're sort of working all together on it and making sure everybody's okay with it, sometimes you need to step away from it and look at it. And when other people look at it for the first time, they might see it in a completely different light. It's no disrespect for them, it's just the way that process works sometimes. So when I look at these, I think that they're very vague. They're so vague that they don't really say very much. When you have a strategic goal, it should say what your goal is. And you had members of the board saying that they didn't think that they could repeat these or explain them to somebody. So how could you, basically what I saw tonight was the board being beaten down and bullied until they finally agreed to vote on it, not put it off, because I heard 4 people say they wanted to delay the vote, and then eventually there was only one who said that, so everybody else was beaten down over this. I think it's unacceptable. There's no transparency. Yes, it was 28 people representing 10,000 students. You should have gotten some input from the community. Thank you. And words do mean something. Words do matter.
You said they don't, but they do. Sorry.
Hi, Veronica Mina, 41 Alston Drive. I absolutely agree. It seems from where I was sitting that there had to be a lot of reading in between, trying to understand that learners meant teachers, students, and parents. Once again, at last minute, the word excellence was thrown there. I don't think there is any disrespect to those 28 people. We absolutely value their time and their effort. However, I do believe that this should have been presented as a draft. So then public comments, people that were not allowed to go to that core meeting, would have their input and would be able to understand. It seemed really from Mr. Flores and Ms. Kaish that they were just trying to pass the vote no matter what, and that is not transparency, that is not communication. How is that even improving communication between the district and parents when you just try to pass the vote no matter what? It was not the right thing to do.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I'm just going to, 2 things to say. One, yes, if someone says I get to make the last word, we first, concerning whether or not our discussion today should have happened earlier, questions, we did see the report, and in fairness to Isaac, you raised questions, and one of the things we can't do as a board is discuss this prior to the meeting. If we had committee meetings, it might have been discussed, but I specifically sent an email to everyone that if you had specific questions, you can raise them to Dave, you get passed on to Dr. Wilson, but we can't have an email discussion discussing the board, discussing this among the 9 members prior to the vote, there was the Open Public Meetings Act, which said that we just can't have those discussions in private. So it is a public discussion. I understood how Isaac felt. There were no surprises. I'll put it that way. So in fairness to that.
Thank you, Tony.
The last item, everybody's been saying goodbye, and I will share mine with my goodbyes to Alicia. I know we've served together for a long time. I've been on the board 10 years and through several rounds of labor negotiations and nights that went on a lot longer than we had hoped. Sometimes we'd see the sunrise as we left. Through all of that, as proposals would come in, she'd wind up telling, the board members who really don't know what that really means and what work is involved, and from obscure contract clauses to how we're going to get the back pay in. The other thing is more of a personal thing. When I first came on the board, the way we were sitting, I was seated next to her. And I appreciated that sometimes these meetings, if you, maybe not now, but in the past, sometimes there were boring sessions, and she appreciated my sense of humor when I pass her a comment or, write her a note. Where I did notice that the second year, Dr. Neo, who was the superintendent, changed our seats, and I wound up sitting on the other side. I guess that's the teacher in her that kept us apart. But anyway, you're going to be missed, and I want to wish you a lot of luck in the future. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Michelle and Taylor. Those in favor of adjourning say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you all for coming out.